All right. You guys ready for Financial Peace University tonight? All right. Good deal. So, Sean, what do you think about tonight's topic? We've got this whole concept of spending money.
Well, if it's in the budget, we're supposed to, right? It's permission to spend in there. But sometimes there's just necessities. The fridge breaks. Well, where do we put all the groceries that we just spent $600 on for the month, right? So we're going to have to shop around and find something right. So let's make sure we get a good deal instead of draining the emergency fund, because that sounds like an emergency, not because the ice maker's out, because we can buy trays at the dollar store, right? But it's not refrigerating. It's not keeping anything cool anymore. That's the time where we're going to pinch and save and everything else and get a good deal.
Yeah. And so the wisdom of spending is the whole point of tonight, because wisdom with spending is what's going to keep you on your plan. Whereas knee-jerk spending, which how many of you would confess you're a knee-jerk spender every now and then? That's what I thought. I thought there might be a few out there. Saw a good deal. Something was on sale for 40% off. You didn't even know you needed that thing, but you saved money because you got it for 40% off, And so there is also an impulsiveness to spending that can ruin the plan we're trying to make. So you'll remember Dave was talking about how the baby steps, or the first 4 lessons we've gone through, are getting the jet off the ground. But now what we're going to do is we're going to play defense to make sure we keep the jet off the ground, because how many know what happens when a jet is not able to stay in the air?
Well, we called that a controlled landing.
Right, but sometimes controlled,
right?
Sometimes they're worse than others. So we wanted to recap last week's action steps. And so, Sean, I'm just going to flip over to this, and you can kind of go over what we were supposed to do this last week, because we talked about the next baby steps. And so you can kind of read through those, and just as a reminder of what we were supposed to do last week, and kind of a checkup for you. Did you do these things, and how is it going so far?
Checking in on the homework you guys all have every week, right? You've been doing it? Getting gold stars? I know I got a sheet of them to give you guys, so,
Where is it? I want a gold star.
I hope. Oh, I got some.
Oh, good.
So hopefully everybody worked with their budget committee meetings. I know the plan set up that we did that at the beginning of the month. I don't think last week was not the beginning of the month, but it was the midweek of the month. So that way, hopefully everybody with 2 paychecks a month was really making sure that the budget and everything was coming in. That giving was at the top of your budget, that you went to one of the assets on the Ramsey membership, which is calculating out your net worth, where you actually do some math and see how much you're worth. That's your total value as far as a financial aspect goes. If you were on baby step 4, you need to get with the Smart Vestor Pro. These are the Ramsey vested financial advisors, and I know we offered a couple that both Pastor Jimmy and I use, and that's something to do before you start your investments. And then there's a little segment on the end of each one, and hopefully everybody got a chance to read that.
So if you are by any chance struggling with signing in or anything like that, please come and see one of us afterwards. Pastor David will also be here to help. He's kind of our tech guru when it comes to that. But we want to make sure that you're able to sign in, you're able to report. We'll make sure at the end of the service to put the QR code back up there if you're using that. If the QR code doesn't work, then just sign in with your smartphone on financialpeace.com and sign in that way. It's the same thing. It takes you to the same place if the QR code is not working. And so, because sometimes people's phones aren't reading the screen, and we try the technology thing, and sometimes it works, sometimes for you it might not work, so we want to make it as easy as possible. But go ahead and sign in. And we're going to get started with Lesson 5 tonight. And so we're already halfway through the course. This is pretty amazing. And so the next 5 lessons are all about life on the plan, life in the baby steps. So everything we learn next is to help you move forward in the baby steps, and to make sure that you don't lose your momentum or throw off any progress that you've made, because you'll find that one baby step or another, usually baby step 2, might take you some time. And so what happens is when you're trying to maintain your momentum is you start losing steam, whether you get discouraged or whether one debt takes too long or whether there's something that tries to derail your plan. And so these next classes are to keep the momentum and keep the defense up there so that you've got the strength that you need to have. We don't want to lose the progress.
Nope. We don't want to go take those, 2 steps forward just to go 3 steps back. That's not the intent here.
And so when 2 years from now you've made the progress, we don't want to backtrack into debt again. We want to move forward because this whole thing works together as a system. So we are really emphasizing the importance of the budget. So how many have been doing your budget? Show of hands. Anybody been doing your budget? Anybody had some struggle with your budget? It's okay to admit it. Budgets are like an unruly animal. You got to tame them down. So we've talked about how food can sometimes be a budget buster because it's hard to guess sometimes how much food we're going to need. We overestimate, we underestimate, usually underestimate. And so anybody have any other budget item? Just shout it out, something that's been giving you a fit. Kids? In what way? What way are kids giving you a fit?
We didn't prepare for this, so Mom has to.
Oh, so the kids need something and they're asking for you to put them in your budget. Yeah, and that is a legitimate thing. Sometimes people want to slide into our budget, and sometimes we can do it. Sometimes we can move some stuff around, and then sometimes, and it depends on the situation, the answer, depending on the situation, is no. That's a viable answer. No's an okay answer if you can't do it.
It's a complete sentence too.
Yeah. And so it's hard because sometimes and I appreciate your vulnerability, because sometimes the emotional appeal from someone who you really want to help but you can't can derail the plan, and it would be better for them to not have that. Or sometimes you can fit them in, and that's good, but that can bust the budget. That's good. Any other budget busters you've been experiencing? Back to school. Yeah, school's right around the corner. All of the moms are looking at the consignment stores instead this time, and they're like, man, this FPU thing right here, I was going to go to the Fred Meyer, now I got to go to the consignment store. There's some great stuff over there. That's great. That's good. Somebody over here, go ahead. Homeowners insurance went up for some, yeah. Yep. Insurance in general in the state of Oregon especially, car insurance, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's going up. So you got taxes, you got homeowners insurance, there's some things that are going up. So yeah, those are things to watch for because they can be budget busters if they catch you off guard, and they're frustrating even if they don't. Because you're like, I really liked the old price. Yeah, that's really good. So this is the thing that we keep emphasizing is you don't do the budget once and then never look at it again. The budget is something you do and you look at all the time so that you can keep going forward. So that's really, really important. So Sean, how has budgeting impacted the way that you save and spend? You used to, like me, you didn't do a budget, now you do. How has that changed you? How do you view that now?
Well, magically, I have enough to make it through the month.
Yeah.
It's like I planned on it.
Yeah.
So budgeting has definitely helped us actually,
Don't you just
out.
love Sean? I have had so much. How many have enjoyed Sean? Isn't he fun?
So it definitely helps it. It takes a lot of the stress out of it because, we get to a point 2 weeks into the month with one paycheck and it's like, I ran out. I got too much month at the end of my paycheck now, and that's just not okay. So actually being able to plan it out and having enough to be able to spend and go, oh, I spent money on the groceries, which made the kids grow, and now I got to buy more clothes. That's one of those things that you could actually sit there and go, okay, there's enough money at the end of the month now that I can go and buy new school clothes. Yeah. That way, they're not all walking around with their ankles showing in the snow.
Yeah, my son, oh my word, his pants fit for 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm. By the time you get them home, they're too short.
Yeah, like yikes. So as a married couple, for you and Artie, how has budgeting with her helped you to talk about money? Because that's one of the big obstacles that I think all of us face is talking about money with our spouse.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely, I'm the spender. It's funny because I'm the nerd, but I'm also the spender, whereas she's the saver and more the free spirit and that kind of stuff. So we actually sit down and we talk. And now, there isn't, 40 Amazon packages on the doorstep because the spender had saw something shiny and just had to have it, So we get to talk about it. We get to be involved in each other's decisions financially, because it is one income. It doesn't matter whether it's not my money, it's our money. And that's a big thing for us to the point where we call them a weekly marriage business meeting where we sit down, we do our schedule, we go over the budget, we go over everything.
Maybe the menu.
Yeah, exactly.
food,
we
yeah.
do food planning, which helps a lot with the budget as well. So we do that every week now, and that's just part of our thing. And usually we had a little piece of paper with all the bullet points on it, so we made sure to cover it, but that's gone out the window a year ago, and now it's just a good connection point. So our finances are no longer a point of contention between the two of us. It's a point of, it's good. It's just another point to connect on a weekly basis for us to sit down.
So has that
and do it.
meeting gotten shorter over time?
The meeting's gotten more tangents in it, for sure. So the financial part of it definitely has. Going over the budget, okay, yeah, everything still looks good. It looks just like last week. Great, we'll move on. Or we have a camping trip coming up. Let's make sure there's more fuel budget this month. Make sure we can get there. But for the most part, those have gotten a lot shorter, and that's after years of doing it. But we still try to touch base on it on a weekly basis. It really does help touching on it together every week.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, tonight's video is actually one of my favorites. I'm curious about psychology. I'm interested in how the human brain works. And marketing in general is a unique thing that happens in a capitalistic society where businesses are marketing things to us and we are consuming that and we're making decisions. But there's also a lot of things we have to do when we're on a plan like this to make sure that the things we're seeing and being sold are not ruining our plan. So I actually really, really enjoy this one because you kind of dive a little bit into how we work on how we spend. So I think you're probably going to find yourself in a couple of these scenarios, and this is an entertaining one to watch. But as I get ready to start the video, go ahead and open up your thing. You're going to go ahead and follow along and write in the words in the blank. And I want you to think about this. In the past month, how often have impulse purchases, which are things that you did not plan on buying, how often did those things impact your budget? Impulse spending.
But they were really shiny.
They were shiny.
I needed the shiny.
Let's go ahead and watch the video tonight. I love how George at the very end there was talking about that we're not angry at companies that market to us. We definitely, there's many of you that own businesses. We've got to be able to sell stuff. The point is that we've got to be mindful, and that whole idea of keeping our brain engaged instead of making impulsive decisions, because many times it's our impulsive decisions that derail our budget that cause us to not reach the goals that we have been setting.
But it's shiny.
It is shiny. It'll still be shiny after you save for it.
Yep.
If it's not there, then it wasn't God's will, right?
Exactly.
It's awesome. Well, most of us know that we're the target of marketing, but we often don't realize just how much we're marketed to. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's just the technology that's being used. And how many of you, just by a show of hands, have been surprised at the ads that show up to you and all you were doing was talking about it with a friend? Yeah. So that's not an accident. And so we just have to be aware of that. That's just the way that marketing is working these days. And all these different companies have one thing in mind, and that's getting us to spend our money. That's how they stay in business. And that makes living on a budget even more important. So we're going to begin to apply these principles that we learned from this lesson with our activity. So it should be the next page there in your outline. And we're going to take a look at these. So go ahead and take us through that, if you would, Sean.
So we've all bought something we didn't need with money we didn't plan to spend, or worse, with money we didn't have. In this activity, we've listed 6 common ways companies go after our money. It's time to get honest with yourself. Think about a time when these methods have influenced you to make a purchase and fill out the chart. If you're married, share the answers with your spouse. So it's all the different ways that they talked about in the video: the personal selling, product placement, brand association, sales and promotions, convenient payment methods, and financing. And then have these methods influenced you to make a purchase? Yes or no, and explain your answer. So either whether they did or did not. We'll give you little bit of time, fill it out.
Yeah, and for those of you that are online at home right now or wherever you're watching, we're going to go ahead and read each one again so that you can talk about this with whoever you're with, or you can think through it. But just take however long it takes to just write a sentence in each one of these. The first one being this: when was the last time that personal selling, one time? We won't do this question quite yet. Sorry about that, Shelley. So this is the personal selling. So his example was the Girl Scouts. Anybody ever bought the Girl Scout cookies? Now, it's okay to buy Girl Scout cookies. There's nothing wrong with that. But how hard is it to say no? And so that's an example. So write a scenario there of a time where personal selling worked on you, or maybe the way that it doesn't work. So just take a second and write that down. Mm-hmm. I liked his example there of that one couple that were out on a jog and then all of a sudden bought solar panels.
Yeah, and it's crazy. You don't even expect that while you're out bird watching that you're going to be, hey, here's $40,000 worth of debt for solar panels on your new roof.
Yeah. Have you ever had a personal selling story like that?
So this is after the whole, we've been in Ramsey for years at this point, but I was just curious, how much did solar actually cost? And the guy knocked on the door, and I was like, perfect, come in, have a seat. I'm going to tell you right up front, I'm not buying anything today. And that changed his own tone, and he didn't really want to come in and try to sell it. It was kind of funny, but he got that quote, and it was scary. I'm like, wow, really?
Yeah.
It was like 16 solar panels, and they wanted like $47,000 installed.
Wow. But what was cool was that you already told him what the criteria was. You'd already set the boundary, which was really cool.
Yeah.
So awesome. So that's personal selling. Let's look at the next one. The next one is product placement. So maybe you walked in somewhere and you were going after this, but you bought that. And so write down on your piece of paper if there was a time where you were actually going to purchase something one way, got something else simply because of where it was located in the store. Could be as simple as you bought Oreos because they were on the end cap on the aisle, or it could be his example of the Samsung television, or even it was Saturday morning, we went out for a drive and came home with a brand new car.
Oh, yeah. Why wouldn't you? It's shiny.
That's shiny. That's right. So go ahead and take just a second and say where product placement might be something that had worked on you before, scenario. I think the bookstore is a big one, because sometimes those books look really good. They're really well placed, and you're like, I need to read that, and I didn't go into the bookstore to read that book.
Yeah, and something a lot of people don't realize is it's not just bookstores that the producers pay for shelf space or front table. It's grocery stores.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason that eye-level products are the top end, and you don't see, everyday essentials right there in the middle a lot of the time. So you don't see the generic brands. There's a reason that Sherm's reorganized everything, and it wasn't because they were tired of walking to the chips in the back. They rearranged because of
it messes up the rhythm.
It does, and it makes you look for more
walk
stuff.
by new products.
And that's
okay. That's a business thing, but we just have to be aware of it. That's a big deal.
It's good, and that's how we keep moving product and we keep sales there, but you got to be aware of it.
Yeah. So that's product placement. The next one is brand association, and he used the example of how often we purchase products based on the culture or the people around us, and he used iPhones as an example. That's a perfect example, but there are many things. Maybe it's the motorcycle brand that you drive, like he was talking about with the Harley, or maybe you're a Yamaha guy. Maybe it's the brand of car you like to drive. Maybe it's whatever it is. So what is product association? How has that worked for you? And I know for me, so go ahead and write that down. I'm just going to tell you mine. My family is a Chevy family. Why? Because my dad was a Chevy guy, and my grandpa was a Chevy guy, and my great-grandpa was a Chevy guy. I do like Chevys, but that's why we're Chevy people, because we're loyal to Chevy. I don't know why. We just are. So that's kind of an example of that. So write that down, some way where brand association has been a big deal for you. Do you have a brand you're loyal to, Sean?
Well, as a hard-working blue-collar guy, Carhartt just always is
Carhartt.
right there. You got to
go.
have the Carhartt. It lasts you forever,
Right.
Pair of pants last you 5 years.
And you can't use the off-brand.
Oh, no.
No,
It's got to be
Carhartt.
Yeah, there you go.
That's right.
So our next one is sales and promotions. You know, when was the last time that flyer that came in that brand new product, that brand new limited time burger at a burger joint, you know, you got to run out and get that. So it's a sale ending right now, limited time. It's never going to be back until the same time next year.
Right.
When has that gotten you guys?
This one always makes me laugh. Do you know how many times McRib has been discontinued? Just a side note. Anyway.
And they sell them like crazy every
That's
time.
right. Every time they come back, they sell
back.
a pile of them. No, that's fun. How many of you have ever bought something because it was on sale, but you weren't going to buy it until you saw it was on? You didn't know you needed it. Anybody? I saved 40%. But you spent 60% on something you didn't need to spend any. Yeah, that happens a lot. Mm-hmm. Sales, that's a big one.
I swear the Buy Mart ad every 2 weeks, it reminds me what I need to buy.
Right, you didn't even know you needed it.
Nope, not until it was on sale.
That's right. All right, so hopefully you're writing these down. This is fun, but it also is enlightening because sometimes we don't realize that this is happening to us. The next one is convenient payment methods. And it is amazing, and they brought this up a few weeks ago in the class, but McDonald's was one of the first convenient or fast food restaurants that started taking debit cards. They were one of the very first ones when debit cards were first out. They noticed a 40% increase in ticket sales, or in order sales, when people swiped a card as opposed to use cash, because it's easier. Interesting, huh? So what kind of convenience payment methods have, maybe it's a really good thing, but it's caused you to spend a little bit more? Go ahead and write that down. How about you, Sean? Do you have a convenient payment method you like?
Oh, if I don't catch my subscribe and save every month to make sure that I don't need another case of toilet paper, that's right there. Again, there's no more room in the hallway closet for it, but it's convenient because I don't even have to go get it. I don't have to deal with this big box, a case of toilet paper now, but you got to make sure if we need it, that's great. But otherwise, I got to make sure to cancel it or skip this month on it.
Yeah, that's good. All right, and the last one is obviously financing. Financing being something that we're definitely not recommending, obviously, because we're trying to go the other direction. But financing is amazing. We haven't seen like 0% on vehicle loans for a long time, but things like that, where it's like, this will be easy. We're going to kick the can down the road. We get the car now, but we're going to pay for it like it's a mortgage. Stuff like that. Or even, it's crazy, you can finance the simplest thing. Have you ever gone into Best Buy? I mean, you could finance a pencil if you wanted to. I mean, there's just lots of ways that you could do that. So financing. Go ahead and write down an example of a way that you have used financing. It's kind of a good exercise to go through to see how these different things kind of separate us from our plan. That's the whole point of talking about this. So all of us spend money on things that we don't really need. And that's okay if we've prioritized our budget and it's a planned expense, but it's not okay to bust your budget buying stuff you don't need and you can't afford. You got to stick to your budget and stay gazelle intent. Stay on that baby step that you're on. So we're going to talk for a few minutes in our discussion questions. And so what I'm going to ask you to do, we're almost done. At home, you can just turn to your neighbor and be able to do that with them. If you're alone, then you can just write down or just think about the answers to these questions. But the first question is this. And you can discuss each one of these for 20 or 30 seconds with the people that are right around you. And so now we can put that one up there, Shelley, if you would do that. When was the last time that you made an emotional purchase? An emotional purchase. And what was that thing? So take just a second and discuss that with the few people that are around you. Have you made an impulse decision based on emotions?
Well, have you made an emotional purchase, Pastor Jimmy?
Yeah, I think emotional a lot of times comes in the area of responding to fear or safety. And so when Jamie and I found out that we were going to have twins, all of a sudden we needed a brand new minivan.
Ooh, shiny.
Because only a brand new minivan would make it safe enough for our 3 children. You know how that, so emotionally, it helped me to feel better that I purchased this. And I found out later that a used van probably would have worked just as good and been a little less expensive. But it actually, it wasn't long after we purchased it that buyer's regret hit. And I'm like, I think I did something on an emotional level because I was afraid of not having enough safety. And so that was my emotional. So have you got an emotional one?
I can't think of anything that was big. I mean,
you're pretty even-keeled guy.
Well, I'm not even going to claim that at all. I mean, they use some great examples in here, like even just tacos. I mean, you get that, that you get hangry and, I need food now. I go home. I got food in the
appetizers
fridge.
Could be an emotional expense.
But, they got that new burger at Jack in the Box or something, I just drive through. I am going to grab that and then go have dinner at home,
Oops, emotional.
Yep.
That's funny. All right, let's go ahead and go to our next question. What's a moment when comparison crept in and affected your spending? When's a moment when comparison crept in and affected your spending?
Keeping up with the Joneses.
Keeping up with the Joneses. Now, if you're a diehard iPhone fan, then that means that you stay in line for hours the night before the new one comes out, so you get the new one first.
Even though you could just go the next day and it's no line.
Right. Just wait 2 weeks and you'll be able to walk right in. But
yep.
That's good. What's a moment when comparison crept in and affected your spending? All right, let's continue on to our next question.
What's the worst impulse purchase you've ever made, and why was it so bad for you? How would you do things differently next time? So that shiny thing, it's shiny. I got to have it. It's right now. I didn't know I needed it until it was right there.
Anybody willing to shout out what's your worst impulse buy? Anybody willing to share it? Baby clothes, because they were cute. So cute. That's right. You got one? Oregon duck stuff. So you saw it on the shelf and you just went bananas. Yep. And came home and you didn't know how it jumped in your car. Oh, you knew how it did.
Yeah.
Christina didn't know how it did. Anybody else? What's an impulse buy that you?
My gym membership.
Your gym membership?
I use it. I plan on using it. I'm going to use it.
But you haven't used it. Yeah. What was it? A travel trailer, yeah. I did that same impulse buy myself. I drove by one day, and the next day it was sitting in my driveway. I didn't know I needed one until I had one. You're done. It's all had a blast and then went, oh, what have I done? It's amazing. All right, let's go to the next question. Can you think of the last targeted ad you got? You probably got it right before you came to church. What was it for? And have targeted ads, maybe I can ask it this way, have targeted ads influenced the way that you spend to make a purchase? Targeted ads are kind of creepy, to be honest. But
they really are. I'll say this, at work, we all have the same Google account for all of our mechanics computers. So that way we share a Google Drive in there. And so anytime we're looking up anything on any of our 5 computers, when we go upstairs and it's the same login, we watch YouTube on breaks, we get targeted ad for whatever somebody just looked up.
On YouTube?
On YouTube.
Oh, yikes.
It's like, well, who's been searching for pressure washer parts? And all we get is Clean Right ads for the whole next 2 weeks. It's crazy.
That's wild. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. All right, let's go to our next question. And so I liked George's smart spender method. And so how can you develop a habit of walking through the smart spender method rather than making an emotional impulse purchase? And basically what he's talking about is being mindful of what we're doing. Because how many know purchasing something that you planned for can be enjoyable? It's actually really a good thing when you make a plan. So how can you implement something that you learned tonight to be able to change your spending habits so you don't derail yourself, is the essence of the question. So take just a second to talk to your group about that. So I know one of the things that I have done that that's really helped me is the unsubscribe from all of the emails.
It's really awesome because if your inbox is super full too, you can just search unsubscribe, and guess what? It'll only bring up all the emails that have unsubscribe in it.
Oh, that's a good. I've never thought of doing it that way.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's really cool. You can just use your search bar in your email and just search for the word unsubscribe. It'll bring up every email that has that option, and then you can click through them. Sean, you're brilliant. I knew there was a reason you were here tonight. You just changed our life. It's amazing. That's good.
I think even Gmail's got a new feature. I've noticed a couple of times. Do you want to unsubscribe to this right at the top?
Oh, that's cool. So yeah, that's awesome. Good job. Yeah, so there's just this sense of being mindful, being in control of this. And so you think to yourself, we really just spent a church service talking about this, but how often do impulse purchases and out of control spending affect our life? They affect our relationships. They affect our hope. They affect our emotions. They affect the way that we serve the Lord. And so these are the tough things that sometimes we're like, well, we don't want to touch that because that might ruffle some feathers or it might not seem spiritual. Church family, this is a spiritual thing. It's a spiritual thing because it's connected to how we steward what God has left us to steward. The finances we have belong to Him. And He's okay with us spending it, but He wants us to spend it with wisdom. And He wants us to enjoy it, but He doesn't want us to be out of control to where when He calls on us for obedience, we have to say no. Because we can't, because we did something else with it. So I love that God lets us enjoy the finances too, but within the guidelines of the Word of God. And so getting these practical things, this was the 2x4 that I needed in my life to hit me right between the eyes to say, hey, God has entrusted you with something, and He's asking you to steward this well. And it's when you think of it that way, you go, oh, this is an act of worship to steward and to honor the Lord with the finances that He's given me. And so I always bring it back to that spiritual application. It's really, really important. So the next lesson that we're going to go through is really, really important. This is going to be the one you're going to want to skip. But my request to you is don't skip it, because this is one that is really, really important. It's the whole area of insurance. Insurance is not scary. It's just not known well by people. You need to have this class. It really will help to change your life and to put some barriers up around your life to help you if storms hit. Because in life, how many of you know, storms are going to happen? And we've got to be prepared for those. And one of the ways we can do that is with insurances. And so car insurance, life insurance, mortgage insurances, all those things that we love to hate, but we need to understand it. And that's why we're going to tackle that next week in Financial Peace University. And so don't skip next week. I promise you it's worth it. And so, Sean, we've got a couple action steps as we get ready to wrap up. So will you go through those?
Oh, I get to give them homework again.
Yeah, some homework. Here we go.
Some homework again.
Drum roll.
So we need to work on our second budget. So we're coming up. It's almost the end of the month. Time to, in the Every Dollar app, it's really cool. It will just port this month's budget and copy and paste it on the next month. And then you get to go through and readjust everything as necessary. Make those changes that you need to make, understanding that, don't forget picture day happens the first month of school. You got a budget for that and everything like that. So get your next month's budget, get that started in your budget meetings. We need to track your transactions, and that's on however you're managing your budget. Make sure that you're, rectifying the budget every month and making sure, balancing that checkbook, make sure everything's there and on there. Commit to cash. Go through George's his smart policies, everything like that, and go through and pay cash. Don't fall for any of the marketing, the payments and stuff like that. It's definitely figure out those categories that where maybe this last month that that you need to go to cash on. That way you don't overspend them. That's how to do it. That's how to stop overspending in that category. If there's no more money there, there's no more cash there, you can't buy anymore. It's that simple. So there's your homework. There's your action steps.
That's awesome. I wanted to hit just one last thing that I have had questions on that I think is really important. And in just a minute, we'll put our QR code back up there if anybody still needs to sign in for tonight. But one of the questions that I get often when I'm helping people with their budgets is, how do I budget if my paycheck comes in weird times of the month? So some people get paid on the 1st and the 15th, or the 15th and 30th. Other people get paid every other Friday, which works sometimes, and then other times it's a headache trying to figure out because you got rent due, but your paycheck doesn't come until the week after that or whatever. One of the things, one of the hacks, one of the tools that I try to give people is to start budgeting a little bit of your paycheck so that you can eventually get one paycheck ahead rather than being behind your bills. So that's when your paycheck hits on the 25th, you're already preparing for your mortgage to come out on the 3rd because you're ahead of it rather than chasing it. And so that's just a little thing that I would encourage you. If you're struggling with your budgeting because your paycheck is hitting at weird times in the month, just start putting a little bit. You might have to include that in your baby step one is the only way that I can help you with that. And just start giving yourself some buffer so that you don't have those overdraft fees when your paycheck hits at a funny time. Pretty soon, it won't even be a big deal because you'll have a buffer. If you don't have a buffer, start doing that so that you can get your paycheck ahead rather than chasing your bills.
And having that buffer in there is a good way to avoid overdraft fees to begin with. The way we set it aside was at first when we were still working on baby step 2 was there was $200 in the checking account. That $200 didn't exist. It just zero
was zero.
Yeah, exactly. And that way it was there. I mean, in case we missed something, that Amazon subscription, annual Prime subscription, we forgot that completely and it automatically came out, So that way it doesn't zero you out, because that's the hardest way to lose $20 or $40, depending on what bank you have, is that overdraft fee. Yep. So if you have that buffer there, that's going to help a lot. Yep. But you have to understand that money doesn't exist, even though it's sitting right there in the account. And that's your buffer, your protection.
So you're just gradually rolling over until you've got a little bit of buffer there. So that's just a little hack. I wanted to mention that because I've had a few conversations recently with that. All right, so was this helpful tonight? Hopefully this is something that you'll be able to implement. You'll be able to have these things cognitively in your mind as you're making wise spending, because wise spending is fun. Wise spending is good, but foolish spending can ruin the plan. And that's the whole point of tonight. So let's go ahead and pray over tonight. We appreciate you so much. Thank you for being here. Make sure that you're here next week. You don't want to miss it. Sean, would you close us in prayer tonight?
Yep. Father, we just thank you for all the wisdom and guidance you can give us, that we open our hearts and our minds to everything that you put out here and on the table for us tonight. Keep everybody safe as they go home, and we pray for our children that they're having great encounters with you on the mountain out there, and that everybody has just had an amazing and excellent opportunity to come and know you more, Lord. Thank you and amen.